What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Elite Fantasy Hoops with Mike Zakarian. We're officially in the NBA offseason. It's way too early to get jacked up for some fantasy basketball plays. Or is it? Because that's exactly what we're going to do today. As the free agency is starting to, I wouldn't say wind down, but we're starting to get a feel for where players are going to land. We're going to look at a handful of targets that I'm excited to start drafting in best ball on Underdog and DraftKings whenever those contests get related. So rare card targets that we'll be looking at and just much more. Even if you're in your daily, your season long, we got it all for you. But before we dive in, you know what time it is. It's time for you to hit the subscribe button, the like button, the comments, the notification bell. Let's boost up the algorithm so my brain feels good. All right, let's get started. We are going to fire up with the Atlanta Hawks. Maybe one of my favorite offseason that's happened so far this season. I also think one interesting thing about Atlanta, I'm used to approaching them as a turnstile on the defensive end, right? Yeah, they had Dyson Daniels out there being incredible, but outside of Dyson Daniels, they were a team that we could target. I'm very curious to see how other offenses attack this team because they can now roll out a ton of different dudes, right? They picked up Kristaps Porzingis. That's pretty interesting. They also had Nickeil Alexander-Walker. This is the projected starting five, I think, right now for Atlanta. You got Trae Young at the 1. You got Dyson Daniels at the 2. Zachary Rissache at the 3. Jalen Johnson at the 4. And then maybe Porzingis at the 5. They've got Nickeil Alexander-Walker now coming off the bench. They also picked up the shooting of Luke Kennard. But the guy we're talking, let's throw out some other names too, just so you have them. You got Asa Newell, who was drafted by the Hawks. You got Kobe Bufkin, Vit Krejci, Mohamed Gay. But the guy we're talking about today is Onyeka Okongu. So Onyeka Okongu is someone I've been targeting in best ball, in so rare, everywhere for the last few years. And what ended up happening was Clint Capella would not get the hell out of the way. But as we are learning, Clint Capella, whether it's a part of a 2-team, a 3-team, or a 7-team trade, is going to the Houston Rockets to be the 3rd, 4th, or 5th string center for that team. It has now opened the door for Okongu, and I'm very curious to see how other fantasy hoopers are going to approach the Atlanta Hawks and Onyeka Okongu to begin with, because I wonder if the arrival of Kristaps Porzingis is going to slow down some of the excitement around Okongu. And I think there's two answers to this. And one, being a Celtics fan, wearing a Luke Kornet shirt right now, Porzingis is probably only playing 50 games, right? So that's at least 32 regular season games where Okongu is not dealing with Porzingis. But they don't really have a ton of other stuff that they're battling. I don't know who else he's battling with. Newell, the rookie, for sure will get a little bit of run at 4 at the 5. They could play some small ball with Jalen Johnson at the 5. But I do think Okongu, honestly, I think he might start over Porzingis anyways. And then those games that Porzingis doesn't play, his floor is very safe, because I do think if Atlanta is going to be competitive this year and they are going to try to actually be ready to compete in the playoffs, you're probably keeping Porzingis's minutes at bay a little bit. And if that's the case, full steam ahead on Okongu. Now, Okongu's last 10 games in the regular season, he averaged 16.5 points per game, 10.5 boards per game, and 2.5 dimes per game. If we look at just his entirety of that season last year, right, he averaged over 13 points a game. That's a career high. Over 9 boards a game. That's a career high. Over 2.5 dimes per game. That's a career high. Shooting 57% from the field. Also sneaky good 75% from the free throw line as well. But the other thing that he provides is some stock upside, where he basically averages one steal and 1 block per game. So Onyeka Okongu coming in, playing the 5 on a team that Atlanta, Trae Young had kept Clint Capella relevant far longer than he should. So somebody like Okongu, I do think might get slept on a little bit, because people were coming around to him a little bit at the end of last season. But again, the arrival of Porzingis might slow it down. So Okongu is probably going to be my favorite target. Again, some of this stuff might shift, especially as we look at best ball. A lot of it is going to depend on where they're getting drafted, right? So if people are valuing Okongu more than they have in the past, last year, you could get him super, super cheap at the end of drafts. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I do think he's still going to be pretty undervalued. So Okongu, number 1 on the list. Let's do some Celtic stuff now. And we gotta prop up our short kings, right? Peyton Pritchard. Peyton Pritchard, kid. So Pritchard, obviously, reigning 6th man of the year. The Boston Celtics took a grenade, threw it up. They brought the tank out. They're blowing up this team, right? The Celtics are going to be in shambles. I think they're going to be playing a faster paced basketball, right? With no Tatum, who this isn't even a knock on Tatum, but like Tatum, you can get to some ISO ball. You can slow it down a little bit. That is not how this Boston team is going to play. And again, depending on what the Celtics do over the next month or so, because there's a real chance somebody like Sam Hauser or Anthony Simons is going to get moved, because somehow, even though the Celtics lopped off Drew Holiday, basically got rid of Porzingis to the Hawks for just straight cash, homie, they are still over the second apron, which is insane. After they signed Josh, why not, my not, they went back over the second apron. So Simons is like $30 million expiring. I think teams will be interested in him. He could be gone, or Sam Hauser. But either way, right? Either way, I think the arrival of Anthony Simons might slow down the Peyton Pritchard hype train. Not for me. Choo-choo. Let's go. All aboard. Pritchard's usage is obviously going to go through the roof. I think the Celtics are going to play faster. I think we're going to see Pritchard launch up like 7 to 8 3-pointers a game. I think he's going to be able to do it efficiently. There is like some concern, right, that if he is into the starting lineup, which I think he's going to start over Simons, although a lot of people are saying that's not the case. I think he should. That maybe he's taking on the first team defenses. It's going to be a little bit slower. I'm not really sure, but I'm going to be all aboard the Pritchard hype train. I think he's going to have the ability to play make way more than he's done in the past. I think he's like a sneaky, decent rebounder, right? Over 4 boards a game. And again, I think the 3-point shots are going to launch. I also think like he's somebody, if they start deciding to lose games on purpose, if the tank comes out, it's Jaylen Brown who's going to be resting, right? Coming off an offseason procedure. He's the one that's going to miss some games. Derek White, who just turned 31, he's going to be the one that misses some games. Pritchard can play 40 minutes a game and not affect tanking. So I like PP. I think that's like a really good shout. I think he can just fill it up this year. And I'm like fringe all-star too. I think that is actually like kind of a fun bet. The next one that we're going to talk about, listen, it feels disgusting for lots of different reasons, mainly because I draft them every damn year. We talk about them way too much. We're going to do it one more time. It's not Michael, it's not Otto, but it is Kevin.
We're the Porters. We share the crowd of up and down performers, throwing things and buzzer beater corners. And one of us is playing for the Warriors. We're juniors and we're the Porters.
I've had some Milwaukee Bucks fans in the chat, on Twitter, in the comments saying they really like the moves that have happened so far for the Bucks. I don't see it, but I'll allow it to slide because we're just talking fantasy hoops right now. But KPJ is going to be the lead guard. I don't know who their backup point guard is. Right now, the starting 5 looks like Giannis Antetokounmpo, the ghost, the corpse, whatever you want to say, of Kyle Kuzma, Miles Turner. And now you have Kevin Porter Jr. and Gary Trent Jr. So KPJ is going to be out there balling. We saw KPJ average like 12, 5, and 5 towards the end of the season there. That was with Dame coming back a little bit too. But with no Damian Lillard, like he's going to be forced to play 30 plus minutes. And they don't have other options. Again, the offseason can ebb and flow. We could see somebody else come in, but I think Kevin Porter Jr. again is going to be a nice little late round target. There's definitely some volatility there. And when his ADB comes out, if a lot of people are drafting him or his price is up on So Rare, maybe pump the brakes a little bit. I don't want to like force being overweight on a guy that has forced himself out of different basketball situations. Feel free to Google the Cleveland Cavaliers locker room with Kevin Porter Jr. Kevin Porter Jr. with Steven Silas. Didn't work with the Clippers very much long term. So, but KPJ is on the list. I am interested in him. But again, drink, because I'm assuming I talk about KPJ all of the time. The other situation I wanted to talk about here, and maybe we ended here, maybe not, is the Indiana Pacers. I mentioned Miles Turner going to the Bucks. We know Halliburton has an Achilles injury. He's not going to be back next year. I don't really know what this team is going to look like because I think the Indiana Pacers are too talented to like fully tank, almost in the Celtics situation, except the Celtics have like Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, and then it's a pretty steep drop off. The Pacers, on the other hand, it's a bunch of guys that are like pretty good. Pascal Siakam, all-star. Don't let me slander him, right? You got Spicy P, Nembhard's a dog, Benedict Mathurin, Obi Toppin. Like they've got the Isaiah Jackson's coming back. So I don't really know exactly which target is the right target. Let me say this, though. The Indiana Pacers have not tanked basically in the history of their team. Remember, like every year you'd go in, the Pacers seemed like they were going to be a joke, but they would never tank on purpose to try to get a better lottery pick. They'd always kind of finish in the middle of the pack, like one of those fringe teams, right? So I don't know if they are actually going to tank this season because they just haven't done it. So if they're not going to tank and you think the Pacers are going to try from game 1 to game 82, wherever Pascal Siakam is going, it's not high enough. If that, again, I think this has to be a thesis play. If you think the Pacers are not going to tank, Pascal Siakam is going to be a second-team All-NBA. Honestly, take that same energy to Jaylen Brown and the Boston Celtics, because I think that is also the case. If you think the Celtics are still going to try to compete, get that like 5 seed or whatever, JB is going to average 28, 8, and 8, second-team All-NBA. Spicy P's probably like 37 and 3, something like that. So if you think they're not tanking, you buy in on all the Siakam. I think directly from the Halliburton injury, 3 guys come to mind that get a little bit of a boost. It's me, TJ McConnell, right? TJ, who had an incredible finals run. We've seen him do this before in the playoffs where he absolutely takes over. I do think, though, that the casual might look at this and be like, we got to get TJ early. Because if we're going to get playoff TJ McConnell, hell yeah. I don't know if I want to be overweight on an expensive TJ McConnell. I almost want to attack this as like, whoever is the least popular of that range is the guy I want the most of. I don't know if that's just contrarian, if I'm being like an annoying Twitter account right now, being like, actually, if you think about it, but if everyone's going to, like, if our guy Roto Run, John Warner's going to be out there being like, TJ, then I think I want to go Nembhard. And I know Nembhard might not be the sexy pick because you know him as playing like full court defense the whole time. But I do think he'll take on more of an offensive load. If he can get the 3-point shot to fall a little bit more, I'm in on that. But I really do think the Pride of Canada is the direction we should be going, and that's Benedict Mathurin. I thought heading into this season, before Halliburton got injured, that Mathurin might have been the odd man out. He would have found himself somewhere else. But with Miles Turner's exit, it allows them to keep Mathurin a little bit longer, I think, and just really see what they have. So I think Benedict Mathurin is a really fun shot to take a big leap. We saw him have some moments in the postseason, really good, getting to the line. So I think I would go the Mathurin route. We should also shout out Obi Toppin. So with no Miles Turner, I believe they still have Thomas Bryant. Tony Bradley might be a free agent, but either the fact that I'm even saying those names, like, what are we doing? Does Spicy P play small ball 5? Does Obi Toppin get more run? Or the 2 other guys that had their Achilles ruined last season, Isaiah Jackson and James Wiseman, that both happened early in the year, so maybe they're back and ready to go. I think it's a situation we should monitor. I'm not thrilled about any of the situations, but it is something we should monitor because somebody's going to play a lot of minutes there. And as we learned in the double dribble, finding some like cheap value in the big position is pretty important. We'll talk more about structure when the contest gets released. You know, like, do you 2 bigs, 4 bigs, 6, whatever. But I do think finding those cheaper bigs are pretty important. We got plenty of other stuff we're going to talk about as we get deeper into the season. We probably could do a whole 35 minutes on the Miami Heat. But this was just to wet the palate, just to get ready. Because the off-season fantasy content, the train's starting to roll. Get on board. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Hit the subscribe on the way out. Who are you most excited about in their new landing spot? We'll see you next time.